Sunday. Salty hot trade winds blowing. Boat loading details everywhere. Time is short. Something big is in the making. Feel it, but can't touch it.
December 1941. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. Shortly after, the United States declares war. The United States extinguished all hope Japan had of trying to win the war. August 6, 1945. The United States dropped the first atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima and countless firebombs upon many other cities. The cities lied in ruins, such as Nagasaki, Hiroshima, Tokyo, Osaka, and Wakayama, and those are just a few of the many. The United States' main goal from the bombings were to wipe out any hope of Imperial Japan from continuing the war. These bombs took out many of the Japanese military outposts and suppressed the chances of Japan's victory in the war. The fire spread rapidly from the coastal winds. August 14, 1945.
Time 1:30. Word has just arrived that our White House has received the signed surrender papers of Japan. Putting the flamethrowers away now, I hope. All hazardous training ceases.
Imperial Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945, and formally signed their surrender document on September 2, 1945. Even though Japan's defeat seemed imminent, the Americans sent soldiers to Japan to control the Japanese from trying anything suspicious. An unidentified sergeant, whom is believed to be named Morton from his journal entries, writes, landed at Wakayama, Japan on Friday, September 28, 1945. He writes,
8:30. Hitting the beach now. Our ramp sticks and we gotta jump over the side, so here goes nothing. I'm the first one over and also on the beach. Wet and cold, morning toward a hill, 200 yards inland.
As he walks further inland, he notices the Japanese have been using the bathroom in the streets. Their running water and sewage systems have been destroyed from the bombings. The sergeant writes,
Wakayama once stood. Never in my life have I seen such destruction. Not a building stands, debris everywhere with Japs living in it.
Wakayama was a sight to see at this time. Crumbled buildings, debris everywhere, Japanese men, women, and children begged the soldiers for food and water. The bombing raids took a toll on cities and people in Japan. The sergeant writes,
Hungry children crowded around me. Wanting cigs and candy, of course I give them some. They offer money. They seem to have plenty. The reason is there's no food and clothes for them to buy.
The life of a soldier is very difficult. There are many challenges they face both mentally and physically. Friday, September 28, 1945. The sergeant enters Wakayama. He has been walking for hours, and he writes,
Cold? I'm freezing. So we're walking again this time. We have walked raining harder and colder. I'm numb, so wheezy. Out in an airstrip now. Water is flowing in the runway. In front of us, we see airplanes and hangars and a Japanese plane. They are grounded and will fly no more in World War II.
For many soldiers, a letter from home can be a comfort and also a reminder of what you are missing. The sergeant's day at sea seemed to be one of his most thoughtful times. He sends letters to his friends and family with the anticipation of seeing them right back. He says,
To be honest, I'm a little homesick. There are days like that. You just seem to get up in the morning thinking about home, and until you go to bed that night, you still have the simple thoughts of how your room used to look, or fishing trips you went on, or maybe even think about your girl.
After seeing cities in such destruction and civilians greatly affected, the soldiers seem to want to forget about things. What better to do than reminisce with letters? The sergeant even exchanges writings with a pen pal from Palmyra, New York.
Not so very long ago, I received a letter from a girl. She said this I well remember. Morton, you see now, don't you? It's not my fault you don't have a kid yet. Yeah!
Letters like these can help distract the mind of the everyday struggles of being a soldier, but news from the outside world can also be a reality check. Morton receives a letter from his longtime pen pal, Jean Schultz, who has just informed him that she has 6 months to live, and the sergeant writes,
I've never met her in person, but she must be a wonderful girl to have courage shown in her letters. She ends by saying, Morton, if by chance within the next 6 months you are near New York, Polynera, New York welcomes you.
To the nation of Japan, which has encountered death and destruction, someone had to bring order back to Japan. That man's name was General Douglas MacArthur. The general runs the country through Emperor Hirohito to keep the people from being on edge. General MacArthur was named Supreme Commander of Allied Powers and established many plans to bring Japan out of the rubble and back to a stable nation. He helped reconstruct the health and welfare system in Japan, which was desperately needed. He appointed military doctors to be administrators during the reconstruction of Japan. The Red Cross also plays a vital role in aiding the Japanese people. The sergeant encounters a Red Cross officer for help with one of his soldiers, and he writes,
We find the Red Cross officer at his office. He is nice. I tell him for 6 months to read letters from this boy's people. He tells me I have to appear in front of an interviewing board. He is getting to go home depending on the decision. I write his sister a personal message.
The United States sent soldiers over to Japan to help restore order. Sergeant Morton just happened to be one of the very first responding soldiers to arrive in Japan. He writes,
1500. I'm riding a water truck now to a water point in center of Jap village, 4 miles down the road near Osaka.
His journey across the sea allowed him to encounter different cultures as well as interacting with the native people. During this time, he was reflecting not only on his life, but the war that he had fought in. Japan had come a long way from the destruction they encountered. America cleaned up their mess and influenced Japan to become one of the greatest democracies in today's world.
They say it's pretty nice where we're going.